Hello, my name is Tamika, and I'm here today to talk to you about ways that I have learned to protect my story ideas. So, I noticed probably a year ago, no, actually, some years ago, when I was finishing my bachelor's degree, I was working on one story, which probably would fall in the women's fiction or contemporary fiction genres. Um, and I was just struggling with how that story should end. So I kind of scrapped that idea. Well, not really scrapped it, but just put it aside um, to return to later. I just was reworking it so many times and was getting frustrated with it. So I figured, let me just put this aside for now, and I'll return to it when I think I can bring it to an end. So as a result of that, I started finding the booktube and authortube and writertube communities, and I started watching a lot of booktube. But what I noticed on there is that they have I would say it's predominantly romance and fantasy booktubers in the community. Like, there's not a lot of thriller booktubers out there. I mean, there's some obviously, but it seems like that community is dominated by fantasy and romance. That's what my eyes see. Okay. And so as a result, I started watching, those content creators, and I really enjoyed their content, but I wasn't reading prior to watching them. I wasn't reading romance all that much, and I don't think I ever read fantasy. I mean, it's really not my genre. I can't think of anything, and then I was trying to become that reader because I liked those creators and what they had to say about the story. So then I started reading their recommendations. But what I realized is that I'm just not interested in fantasy that much. I mean, I found some stories that I like, but for the most part, that's not my genre. And then as for romance, now I have always read romance, but not consistently. It's not one of my favorite genres to read. But as a result of consuming so much romance booktube and listening to their recommendations, I did increase my intake of romance novels. But still, it's just really not my thing. But as a result of reading so much of it, I realized it shifted my focus as far as the story ideas I would come up with and what I became interested in writing. However, I'm not into writing smut. So that's the struggle if you want to be a romance writer. I'm not interested in being a romance writer, but that's where I noticed that consuming that much of the romance booktube content was affecting my plot ideas, affecting the genres I thought I wanted to write in. And so as a result, I realized that I was just having this constant conflict with what I was watching versus trying to draft my writing ideas. So with some of the stories, and not that I have any regrets about writing those stories, but because I was reading so much romance, I thought that I was writing the story the wrong way. And so I was feeling like, okay, I got to put romance here because I don't know, I just felt obligated to have romance in there. So anyway, I say all that to say that I really had to reconstruct what I consume in my personal free time, okay? So I'm looking at my notes here, and I made some notes about what changes I wanted to make. So first, something came to me about a thriller mystery idea. And so, and I have a lot of thriller mystery ideas, but again, because I was watching so many, romance booktubers, I tended to shift into writing romance, but again, it's really not my thing. So then I had two thriller ideas that I had already drafted, but I never finished the ending. But that's my normal drafting process. I really don't finish the ending, and then I tend to underwrite, because usually with the first draft, it's really not the best work anyway. And then, if I write too much, then I convince myself that I don't need to, get rid of anything. So I tend to underwrite anyway. But I had 2 thriller ideas that I drafted, and they were around 40,000 words each. But I tend to not focus on my thriller ideas. So anyway, that's what made me evaluate what I'm doing and why I'm focusing on stories or plot ideas that's not really reflecting who I want to be as a writer. So then I came up with another thriller idea that was kind of inspired by a personal experience. And so I said to myself, I need to make some changes if I am going to work on this thriller idea, okay? Because I don't want it to be another situation where I just draft, 40,000 words, have no ending, and then I don't go back to it. So I did come up with some ways to focus myself and not allow other genres to distract me and make me think I need to change what I'm doing, what I'm writing, and how the characters are behaving in order to appease romance readers. Like, I need to focus. This is my lane, and this is where I need to be, okay? So how I plan to protect my idea from conflicting plot ideas this time around, I have 5 areas that I'm going to change within my habits to hopefully protect my story idea. And so the list goes as follows. So the first one is stop watching or watch less of romance and fantasy books. Usually when I watch too much of it, I end up checking out, borrowing books from the library or buying books, whatever. And I'm reading that stuff. And like I said, it just influences me to write in those genres. So like I said, when I'm drafting, I'll either stop altogether or read less of it. Usually when I tell myself to do a hard stop, that doesn't work. So that's why I did. I did put that little in parentheses, watch less, if a hard stop doesn't work for me. Okay. And then the second one is read in the genre that I am drafting in. I find that this helps me with just staying focused as far as the genre that I'm drafting in. So if I'm writing a thriller, I'll read thrillers. If I'm writing a romance, I'll read romance, and so on and so on. You get it, right? Okay, third one on the list is, so when I need a break, I will consume nonfiction content. I do like to listen to podcasts, and I always liked reading nonfiction books, biographies mainly. So again, that will help because I'm just someone who likes to read and consume stories. So nonfiction definitely helps out, because also I think I started reading other genres because I didn't want to read in the same genre, because I was thinking that I might end up unintentionally being influenced by other people's stories, and I don't want that to happen. So I mean, usually when I'm writing, I don't read a lot anyway of fiction stories, but whenever I need something, but maybe I don't want to read another fiction story, that's my solution, is to pick up nonfiction. All right, and then fourth on the list is to keep a notebook nearby. That way I always have my current whip on my mind, and if I get any ideas, I always have a notebook accessible for me to jot down a quick idea, and it's not like I'm not confined to certain spaces to think of new ideas. So, I mean, some people, your phone is your notebook, but I'm really not a device heavy person. So that's why, I tend to have notebooks around my home, and even at work, I do have a notebook that whenever I come up with story ideas, I just write it down real quick in my notebook. So I'm just going to continue with that. That way, my story is consistently on my mind and not, novels by popular authors or whoever. But, it's my story constantly in my head and I'm focused on it. So that's number 4. And then the last tip for me is to fast draft, which I tend to do anyway. I don't like to take too long with drafting. And like I said, I am an underwriter. I think most people would consider me an underwriter. I tend to write, like, my first draft usually is around 50 to 60,000 words, depending on the genre. So I'm an underwriter anyway, so it shouldn't take me that long to draft. So usually like 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, but yeah, no longer than a month. But although some people may not call that fast drafting. But yeah, for the most part, 2 weeks to a month is how long I usually take to draft the first draft. So that kind of helps me to just get it out on paper, whatever ideas I have. Usually I don't worry about the ending because, again, things tend to change and you don't really know the characters all that well during the first draft anyway. So I see focusing on the ending as a waste of time. But that's just me, that's how I do things. But again, that is my list of tips to keep me focused on my story ideas so that I can finish my draft and work on the next draft. All right, so hopefully this helps anyone else who is noticing this about themselves. If you find yourself distracted by other people's stories and influenced to change your own story as a result of it, hopefully these tips will help you. And if they do, let me know. I would love to hear. But anyway, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a like and tell a friend. And I will catch you in the next one, okay? I hope you are enjoying your day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.